Ethan Walker never wanted a loud or complicated life. He always dreamed of a place where mornings were slow, evenings were quiet, and people smiled at each other without any hidden meaning. After years of living in a busy city, traffic noise, crowded buildings, and angry faces, he finally decided it was time for a change. When he first drove into Willow Creek neighborhood, the road was lined with tall, old trees, their branches forming a soft green tunnel above his car. The sun gently passed through the leaves, making the light dance on his windshield. Ethan felt peace wash over him. This was exactly the kind of place he had been looking for. He found a small house at the end of a wide street. The house was simple: white walls, red roof, a little wooden fence, but to Ethan, it felt perfect. The backyard was the real treasure. It was big, open, and full of healthy soil. Ethan had always loved planting. Gardening was not just a hobby for him, it was something that made him feel alive. The smell of soil, the touch of leaves, the quiet patience of watching things grow, it felt like therapy for his heart. He unpacked his boxes slowly during the first week. He placed his old bookshelf near a window, hung a few simple pictures on the walls, and filled his kitchen with fresh vegetables from a local farm. Every morning, he stepped outside with a cup of warm tea, looked at the empty backyard, and imagined rows and rows of vegetables: tomatoes, carrots, cucumbers, peppers. He could see it all in his mind. On the 7th day, he finally decided to start. He bought seeds, fertilizer, and tools. He spent the entire morning turning the soil, cleaning the space, and planning where each plant would grow. The weather was cool, the sky clear, and the neighborhood quiet, too quiet, actually. Ethan looked around and realized he had not seen many neighbors. A few houses seemed empty. Others had curtains closed tightly, as if people didn't want to be seen. Still, Ethan didn't worry. Maybe people here liked privacy. By afternoon, he was covered in dirt but smiling wide. His first row of vegetable beds was ready. As he stood up to stretch his back, he noticed 3 people walking toward him. They were dressed neatly: dark blue shirts, black pants, and shiny badges pinned on their pockets. One of them carried a clipboard. "Hello," Ethan said politely. "Are you my neighbors?" The woman in front shook her head. Her smile was thin and stiff. "We are members of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. The HOA." Ethan had heard of HOAs before. They usually took care of neighborhoods, made sure houses looked clean, and handled community rules. Nothing too serious. "Oh, all right," Ethan replied. "Is everything okay?" The woman tapped her clipboard. "We noticed you are preparing a garden. Can you tell us what you plan to grow?" Ethan blinked, confused. "Vegetables. Just small crops for personal use." The woman made a strange face, like she didn't approve. "Vegetable gardens are allowed, but only under certain guidelines. The HOA has strict rules to maintain the beauty and order of the neighborhood." Ethan nodded slowly, trying to understand. "Sure. Can I get a copy of those rules? I want to follow them." "You will receive them soon," she replied. "For now, make sure your garden remains neat and small. We dislike anything that looks wild." The way she said the last word made Ethan uncomfortable. It felt like a warning, not advice. The 3 HOA members walked away without another word. Ethan watched them go, feeling something heavy settle in his chest. He shrugged it off at first. Maybe they were just strict. Maybe this was normal here. He didn't want to judge too soon. The next days were peaceful again. Ethan woke early, watered the little sprouts, removed weeds, and enjoyed the quiet beauty of his home. The plants grew fast under his care. A soft green wave spread across the soil, and Ethan felt proud. Every small leaf made him smile. One afternoon, while he was checking the tomatoes, he saw an elderly man walking by with his dog. Ethan waved. The man hesitated, then walked closer. "You're the new guy," the old man said softly. His voice was kind, but his eyes held something like worry. "I'm Mr. Howard. This is Max." Ethan knelt and scratched the dog's head. "Nice to meet you. I'm Ethan." The old man leaned in a little. Be careful with that garden, son. Ethan frowned. Why? Is there a problem? Mr. Howard looked around before speaking. The HOA here, they don't like people who stand out. They want everything their way. Even small things can upset them. Ethan tried to laugh it off. It's just a garden. Nothing is just anything to them, Mr. Howard whispered. They watch everything. And they don't forgive easily. The man walked away, leaving Ethan with a strange cold feeling in his stomach. That week, he received a letter in his mailbox. It had the HOA logo on top. Inside, the message was short. Your garden appears larger than allowed. Please reduce its size or face violation consequences. Ethan stared at the letter, confused. His garden wasn't big. It was neat, clean, and well kept. He had followed every guideline he had received after he asked for the rules. He walked outside and looked at his plants. They were beautiful. Healthy. Peaceful. Why would anyone complain? He decided to ignore the letter. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they sent it to everyone. He didn't want to start a fight. But something inside him warned him that this was not over. Days passed, and the neighborhood grew stranger. People rarely spoke. Curtains remained closed. A woman watering her flowers quickly turned away when she saw Ethan. Even children playing in their yard suddenly went silent when he walked by. It was like everyone knew something he didn't. One evening, Ethan stayed outside longer than usual, enjoying the cool breeze. He stood beside his crops, proud of their progress. The tomatoes were turning red. The peppers were growing strong. He whispered to himself. This is what peace feels like. But just as he turned to go inside, he noticed a shadow move near the fence. He froze. Someone was watching him. He stepped closer, but the shadow disappeared. Ethan felt a strange chill run up his spine. Something was not right in Willow Creek. He didn't know it yet, but this quiet beginning was only the surface of a much darker story, one that would take him into a fight he never imagined. And it all started with a simple garden. The problem started quietly, like a small cloud in the distance, easy to ignore, easy to forget. But storms never stay small. They grow, gather power, and strike without mercy. For Ethan, the storm arrived on a night that began peacefully. The sun had already gone down when he stepped outside to check his crops one last time. The air was cool, and a soft wind blew through the leaves, making them dance gently. The tomatoes glowed under the moonlight, and the soil smelled fresh after the evening watering. Ethan felt proud. His garden was not just a garden anymore, it was a symbol of his new life. He stayed outside for a few minutes, breathing in the calm night. Everything felt normal. But the quiet was lying. While Ethan slept, Willow Creek was awake. Down the street, 3 dark figures walked together. Their footsteps were slow, controlled, like people who had done this before. They carried long metal cans in their hands. One of them held a clipboard tucked under her arm. The same clipboard Ethan had seen the first week he moved in. It was the HOA. Around midnight, Ethan woke up suddenly. His room was warm, too warm. He smelled something strange in the air. A sharp, bitter smell. Smoke. His heart jumped. He ran to the window, threw the curtains open, and froze. His backyard was glowing orange. For 1 second, he hoped it was just a trick of the light. Maybe a neighbor had a bonfire. Maybe someone was lighting fireworks. But then he saw the flames. They danced wildly across his crops, hungry and bright, eating everything he had grown. The fire crackled loudly, sending sparks into the dark sky. Ethan didn't think. His body moved on its own. He grabbed his shoes, rushed outside, and sprinted toward the burning garden. The heat hit him like a wall. He covered his face with his arm, coughing. His beautiful plants, his hard work, his peace, were turning to ash. "What is happening?" he shouted, his voice breaking. Then he saw them. 3 HOA members stood near the fire, watching calmly, like they were observing a normal routine. Their faces glowed in the flames, cold, emotionless, untouched by guilt. The woman with the clipboard, the one who had warned him before, stepped forward. "You were warned," she said. Ethan stared at her in disbelief. "Warned? You burned my crops. Are you insane?" "You violated the community rules," she replied, her voice sharp and steady. "Your garden was too large. Too uncontrolled. We cannot allow chaos in Willow Creek." "Chaos?" Ethan coughed, feeling his throat burn. "These were vegetables. Healthy vegetables. I followed the rules you gave me." She sighed, almost annoyed. "You didn't follow the rules correctly. This is corrective action." Ethan's fists clenched. He felt anger boiling inside him, hotter than the fire burning his land. "You destroyed my property," he shouted. "This is illegal." The man standing beside her stepped forward. He was tall, with a blank expression that made Ethan shiver. "Everything we do," he said slowly, "is approved." "Approved by who?" Ethan demanded. But none of them answered. Instead, they turned away and began walking back toward the street, leaving Ethan alone with the fire. "Come back!" Ethan yelled. "You can't just walk away." They didn't look back. The flames rose higher as if mocking him. Ethan grabbed a hose and tried to spray water, but it was too late. The crops collapsed into black ash. The soil sizzled. The air filled with smoke and the bitter smell of loss. By the time the fire burned out, Ethan fell to his knees, exhausted. His hands were shaking. His breath came out in painful gasps. Everything he had built in weeks, everything he loved, was gone. The next morning, the fire had cooled, but Ethan's anger was burning hotter than ever. Neighbors passed by, pretending not to stare at his ruined garden. Some whispered to each other. Others avoided his eyes. But no one came to ask if he was okay. No one offered help. They were afraid. And fear, Ethan realized, was the true ruler of Willow Creek. He walked into his house, opened a drawer, and pulled out his phone. His hands still trembled, but his mind was sharp. He took pictures of the burned garden, the scorched soil, the broken tools. He moved around carefully, capturing every detail. This time, he would not stay silent. He called the police first. When the officers arrived, they looked at the damage with tired eyes. One of them, a young man with a nervous expression, pulled Ethan aside. "Look," the officer said quietly, "I'll file the report. But the HOA, they have connections. These cases don't go far." Ethan's frustration grew. "So what? I should just accept this?" The officer sighed. "I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, be ready. They don't play fair." When the police left, Ethan sat on his porch, staring at the smoke still rising from his backyard. His heart hurt. His hands felt heavy. But deep inside, a small fire had lit up, strong and unbreakable. He would fight back. He didn't know how yet. But he would. Later that evening, there was a loud knock on his door. Ethan opened it and found an envelope taped to the wood. No one was there. Inside the envelope was another HOA notice. "You have been fined $14,000 for destruction of community property and violation of landscaping rules. Immediate payment required. Failure to respond may result in property seizure." Ethan laughed a broken, angry laugh. They burned his crops. And now they were fining him. For the destruction they caused. It felt unreal. Like a nightmare he couldn't wake from. But that was their mistake. They thought he would break. They thought fear would silence him, the way it silenced everyone else in Willow Creek. But Ethan was not like the others. He looked at the burned garden one last time and whispered to himself. "This is not the end. This is the beginning." He didn't know it yet, but this act, the night of the burning, was the first step in a chain of events that would shake the entire neighborhood. A chain that would pull secrets into the light. A chain that would lead all the way into a courtroom, where Ethan would face not just the HOA, but the most powerful man in the country. The morning after the fire felt colder than usual. The sun was out, the sky was clear, but Ethan felt like he was living under a heavy shadow. Every time he looked at the blackened soil in his backyard, his stomach tightened. It didn't feel real yet, not fully. His garden had been a place of peace, and now it looked like a crime scene. But even before he had time to gather his thoughts, trouble began knocking again. At exactly 9:02 a.m., there was a sharp, impatient knock on his front door. Ethan opened it slowly, already expecting the worst. Standing outside were two HOA members. Not the same ones from the night before, these were new faces. One of them, a tall man with glasses, held a tablet in his hand. The other, a woman with a stiff smile, carried a metal folder. "Mr. Walker," the man said in a flat voice, "we are here to conduct a follow-up inspection." "Follow-up?" Ethan repeated. "You burned my garden last night. That wasn't enough?" "We conducted corrective action," the woman said calmly, as if discussing laundry. "But now we must inspect for remaining violations." Ethan stared at them in disbelief. His voice rose. "You mean the violations you created?" The man ignored him. "Please step aside." Without waiting for permission, they walked straight into his backyard. Ethan followed them, anger boiling inside him. The woman clicked her pen and began writing notes as she walked around the burnt soil. "Severe damage," she said. "Unapproved soil condition. Hazardous ash." "Hazardous ash? They caused that." The man with glasses took photos with his tablet, nodding at each burnt patch like he was checking boxes on a list. "This will add an additional fine," he announced. Ethan's jaw dropped. "You can't be serious." "We follow the rules," the man said. "And so must you." Ethan stepped forward, blocking his path. "No. I'm done listening. You have no right to destroy my property and then charge me for your actions." The woman finally looked up from her notes, her smile fading. "You signed the HOA agreement when you moved here, Mr. Walker." "I signed nothing about burning gardens." "You signed that the HOA has final authority," she replied. "That is enough." Before Ethan could respond, the man closed his tablet and said, "You will receive an updated fine notice soon." They walked away calmly, too calmly, as if they had just finished a normal morning task like taking out the trash. Ethan stood in the ruins of his garden, feeling helpless but furious. The HOA wasn't just strict, they were dangerous. They had confidence, power, and something even worse, control over everyone in Willow Creek. And they were just getting started. By the afternoon, Ethan received another letter. The envelope was thick this time, filled with printed pages. He sat on the porch and read each line with growing disbelief. $14,000 fine for landscaping violation. $3,200 fine for fire safety violation. $1,800 fine for improper soil disposal. $900 fine for failure to follow previous warnings. Total, $19,900 due in 10 days. At the bottom, in bold red ink, were the words, "Failure to pay may result in property seizure." Ethan felt the world tilt for a moment. He sat back, staring at the numbers. Almost $20,000. In 10 days. He didn't have that kind of money. Not even close. They were not punishing him. They were trying to crush him. And for the first time since he moved to Willow Creek, Ethan felt afraid. Around sunset, Ethan decided to talk to the neighbors. Someone had to know what was going on. Someone had to speak up. He went to the house across the street. A woman peeked through the curtain when he knocked, but she didn't open the door. "Please," Ethan said, "I just want to ask." The door clicked locked. She didn't speak. He tried another house. An older couple opened a crack in their door, just enough to show their eyes. "What did you do?" the old woman whispered fearfully. "I didn't do anything," Ethan said. "The HOA. Hush, the old man snapped quietly. Don't say their name outside. They hear everything. Ethan blinked. Hear what? The old couple exchanged a nervous look. We can't help you, the old man said softly. We warned the last person who fought them. He lost his home. Ethan's breath froze. What happened to him? He moved away, the woman whispered. Or, maybe he didn't. Nobody knows. We don't ask questions here. The door closed slowly, leaving Ethan standing alone on the porch. He tried one more house, Mr. Howard's. The elderly man opened the door, his face tense with worry. I saw the smoke last night, Mr. Howard said quietly. I knew it was them. Why won't anyone stand up to them? Ethan asked. They act like they own the whole town. Mr. Howard sighed. Because maybe they do. Ethan frowned. What do you mean? The HOA here isn't like normal HOAs. They have powerful support. People in government. People with money. They say all their decisions come from higher authority. No one wants to risk their family over a garden or a rule. But this isn't just a rule, Ethan said. This is abuse. I know, the old man whispered. But please, Ethan, be careful. They will fight back harder than you expect. Ethan clenched his fists. They already are. Before he left, Mr. Howard handed him a small card. If you really want to fight, he said softly, call this lawyer. He helped someone years ago. He might help you. Ethan thanked him and walked home. He sat in his living room, staring at the card. A simple white business card. A name and a number. Maybe this lawyer could help. Or maybe this would drag Ethan into a battle far bigger than he imagined. That night, Ethan received a text message from an unknown number. Drop the complaint. This is your only warning. Ethan's heart stopped. Another message arrived. We know where you live. We control this neighborhood. Don't make this worse. And then a third. You don't understand who you're fighting. Ethan's hands began to shake. But with every threatening word he read, something strange happened inside him. He wasn't scared anymore. He was angry. The HOA thought they were untouchable. They thought they could scare him like they scared everyone else. But they picked the wrong person. He picked up Mr. Howard's card, dialed the number, and waited. A calm voice answered. Law Office of James Porter. How can I help you? Ethan took a deep breath. My name is Ethan Walker, he said. I need to sue my HOA. There was a brief silence. Then the lawyer replied, I've been waiting for someone like you. Ethan didn't understand what that meant. Not yet. But he was about to learn that the HOA's power didn't come from the neighborhood. It came from far above, higher than anyone could imagine. And his fight was only beginning. Ethan didn't sleep that night. His mind raced like a storm, anger, fear, confusion, determination, all spinning at once. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flames rising from his garden. He heard the cold voices of the HOA. He remembered the text messages threatening him. By sunrise, he made his decision. He would fight. No matter how powerful the HOA was, no matter who stood behind them, he would not be silent. At exactly 8 a.m., Ethan called the lawyer again. Mr. Porter, he said, trying to keep his voice steady, I want to meet today. It's urgent. Come to my office at noon, the lawyer replied calmly. And bring the HOA letters, the photos, and anything else you have. Ethan packed everything: letters, warnings, photos of the burned garden, screenshots of the threatening messages. He slid them into a folder and drove to the address on the card. The law office was a small building near the edge of town, half hidden behind tall oak trees. It didn't look like the office of a powerful lawyer. No big signs. No fancy windows. Just a quiet door with a brass plate that read, James Porter, attorney at law. Ethan hesitated for a moment. He wasn't sure if this man could help, or if he was walking into another trap. But he pushed the door open anyway. Inside, the office was simple but neat. A bookshelf filled with old legal books lined one wall. A coffee machine hummed softly. At the center stood James Porter, an older man with silver hair, sharp eyes, and a calm presence that instantly made Ethan feel slightly safer. "You must be Ethan," Porter said, offering a handshake. Ethan nodded. "Thank you for seeing me." Porter gestured for him to sit. "Tell me everything." So Ethan did. He told him about the garden, the burning, the fines, the threats, the strange silence of the neighbors, the warnings from Mr. Howard, everything. Porter listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When Ethan finished, the lawyer quietly looked at the photos, then the letters, then the screenshots. He finally leaned back in his chair and said, "I knew this day would come." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" Porter folded his hands. "The Willow Creek HOA has been out of control for years. They act like they own the town. They scare people. They issue illegal fines. They destroy property. And no one does anything because they have powerful protection." "What kind of protection?" Ethan asked. Porter looked at him for a long moment before answering. "Government protection." Ethan felt a chill. Government? Why would the government care about a neighborhood? Porter stood up and walked to the window. "Because this neighborhood isn't normal. It's part of a pilot district, a test zone for a massive redevelopment project. And someone at the top wants full control of the land. The HOA is the tool they use." Ethan blinked. "Who is at the top?" Porter shook his head. "I don't know yet. But I know this, they don't want anyone disobeying the HOA. Anyone who does becomes a target." Ethan clenched his fists. They picked the wrong target this time. Porter smiled slightly. "Good. I like your spirit." He walked back to the desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a stack of papers. "What is that?" Ethan asked. "Our lawsuit," Porter replied. "Against the HOA. For property destruction, harassment, illegal fines, and abuse of power." Ethan stared at the thick stack of documents. "You already had this prepared?" Porter's smile widened. "Let's just say, you're not the first person they've hurt. But you might be the first who's brave enough to fight." 2 days later, the case was filed. And everything in Willow Creek changed. The HOA was furious. They sent more letters. More fines. More warnings. The messages on Ethan's phone became bolder, more threatening. "You will regret this. Drop the lawsuit now. We know everything about you." Porter told him not to respond. "Let them talk," the lawyer said. "They are scared." "That's good." But the threats weren't the only sign. Strange cars started appearing near Ethan's house. Black vans he had never seen before parked on the corner for hours. At night, headlights paused in front of his home before moving on slowly. Ethan felt watched. Followed. Surrounded. Yet he didn't back down. Every day he recorded everything. Every car. Every message. Every letter. He built a case stronger than he expected. And the court date finally arrived. The courthouse was crowded that morning. Reporters stood outside with cameras. People whispered to each other as Ethan walked through the doors with Porter beside him. He didn't understand why there were so many people. It was just a local HOA case, right? But when he stepped inside the courtroom, things became even stranger. The judge looked tense. The HOA members sat in a tight group, whispering nervously. And behind them sat men in dark suits, government-looking men, silent, still, staring straight ahead. Ethan leaned toward Porter. "Who are they?" he whispered. Porter didn't take his eyes off them. "People who shouldn't be here." As they sat at their table, the HOA's lawyer entered, an expensive-looking man with a perfect suit and a cold smile. He placed a thick folder on the table and whispered something to the HOA members, who nodded nervously. Porter leaned over to Ethan. "Stay calm. They want to scare you." Ethan nodded, though his heart was racing. The judge called the room to order. Case number 1029, Ethan Walker vs. Willow Creek Homeowners Association. Ethan felt the entire room shift as his name echoed through the air. The HOA's lawyer stood first. "Your Honor, we request this case be dismissed. The plaintiff violated multiple community rules." Porter cut in sharply. "Objection." The HOA burned his crops. Gasps spread through the courtroom. The HOA lawyer smirked. "We acted under approved authority." Porter stepped forward. "Then let's see who gave that authority." The judge looked over his glasses. "And that will be addressed. I have been informed an additional witness is arriving soon." Ethan frowned. "A witness? Who?" The doors at the back of the courtroom suddenly opened. Everyone stood. Every whisper stopped. Every camera clicked. And Ethan felt his breath freeze. Walking through the doors was a man he had only seen on television. The President of the United States. Calm. Confident. Surrounded by security. The judge cleared his throat. "Mr. President, please take the stand. You are here today as a defendant." Ethan stared in shock. The HOA didn't just have connections. They had the highest connection possible. And Ethan was now fighting them all. His real battle was only beginning. The courtroom was silent, so silent that Ethan could hear his own heartbeat. The president sat on the witness stand, calm and unreadable. His hands were folded neatly. His eyes scanned the room, landing briefly on Ethan before returning to the judge. Ethan still couldn't believe it. He had come to court to fight the HOA. Not to face the most powerful man in the country. Porter leaned close to him. "Listen carefully. What happens next will tell us everything." Ethan nodded, though his stomach was twisting into knots. The judge cleared his throat. "Mr. President, your presence in this case is highly unusual. Please explain your connection to the Willow Creek Homeowners Association." Everyone leaned forward. Even the reporters stopped whispering. The president adjusted his tie. "My administration approved a redevelopment project," he said calmly. "Willow Creek was selected as a pilot area. I signed the authorization papers." Porter stood up immediately. "So you approved the HOA's actions?" The president raised one eyebrow. "I approved a community improvement plan. I did not approve burning gardens." A ripple of shock moved through the courtroom. The HOA members began shifting in their seats nervously. Porter continued. "Then how do you explain the HOA claiming higher authority for their actions? They used your name. Your signature. Your approval." The president turned slightly toward the HOA table. His face remained calm, but his voice lowered, cold and sharp. "I have never authorized harm against any homeowner." Ethan watched the HOA members shrink under his gaze. For the first time, they looked scared, not of Ethan, but of the truth coming out. Porter stepped forward, holding a stack of documents. "Your Honor, we have evidence that the HOA used federal approval to pressure residents. They claimed the president wanted strict compliance. They used his name to silence people. They burned property. They issued illegal fines." The HOA lawyer jumped up. "Objection. These accusations are wild and—" "Sit down," the judge snapped. The courtroom erupted with whispers. Ethan felt a strange mix inside his chest: fear, hope, confusion. If the president wasn't behind the HOA's actions, then someone else was. Someone high. Someone powerful. Someone using the president's name like a shield. Porter turned to the president. "Mr. President, did you personally assign anyone to oversee Willow Creek?" "No," the president replied. The project was handled by a federal redevelopment committee. Porter's eyes narrowed. And who leads that committee? The president hesitated for the first time. A brief pause. A small breath. Then he answered. Vice President Daniel Kincaid. Ethan felt the courtroom freeze. Kincaid. A man known for strict policies, aggressive development, and cold decisions. A man who rarely smiled. A man who loved control. Porter wasted no time. Your Honor, we request access to communication records between the HOA and Vice President Kincaid's office. The HOA lawyer looked pale. No. Absolutely not. Why? Porter asked. Is there something to hide? The lawyer stuttered. This is a local matter. The vice president, he has nothing to do with. Enough, the judge said. The request is approved. A loud gasp spread across the courtroom. The HOA members began whispering rapidly, panic rising in their voices. The president watched quietly, his expression unreadable. But Ethan saw something strange in his eyes, something like disappointment. Or anger. Court was dismissed for the day. But the real storm was outside. A crowd of reporters rushed toward Ethan as soon as he stepped out of the building. Mr. Walker, did you know the president would be in court? Are you afraid? Do you believe the vice president is involved? Do you think this is part of a bigger conspiracy? What will you do now? Microphones in his face. Cameras flashing. Questions coming from every direction. Ethan felt overwhelmed until Porter placed a firm hand on his shoulder, guiding him through the crowd. No comments today, Porter said calmly. They made it to the car and drove off. When they reached Porter's office, Ethan finally spoke. His voice trembled. Porter, what is happening? This isn't just a garden case anymore. Porter poured him a glass of water. No, Ethan. It isn't. This is bigger than any of us expected. Tell me the truth, Ethan said. Everything. Porter exhaled slowly. For years, people suspected Willow Creek was being used as a test zone for a massive federal expansion project. Homes would be removed. Land taken. But to avoid public outrage, they needed a way to force residents out quietly. Ethan swallowed. The HOA. Porter nodded. Yes. The HOA was their tool. But someone in the government gave them extraordinary power. That someone might be the vice president. Ethan felt cold. So the burning of my crops, the fines, the threats, it was all part of a plan to push me out? It appears so, Porter said. But you didn't back down. That scared them. They never expected resistance. Ethan leaned back, feeling the weight of everything. So, what now? Porter gave a faint smile. Now, we dig deeper. That night, Ethan couldn't relax. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. You are playing with fire. Another message arrived seconds later. Stop before you ruin everything. Then a third. You don't know who you're fighting. Ethan's hands shook, but this time not from fear. From anger. He replied with one sentence. See you in court. The next morning, Porter called. We got something, he said. Something big. Ethan rushed to the office. Porter was standing by his desk with a printed email chain in his hand. This, Porter said, raising the papers, is communication between the HOA president and the vice president's office. Ethan held his breath. Read the last line, Porter said. Ethan read it. And his blood ran cold. Take control of every property. Use force if needed. The president must not know. Ethan felt the world shift beneath him. The connection was real. The vice president had ordered the HOA to control the neighborhood. This wasn't just a plan. It was a secret operation. Porter looked at him firmly. "This changes everything, Ethan," he said. "This isn't just your fight anymore." Ethan nodded slowly. He understood. The HOA had power. The vice president had more. But Ethan had the truth now. And truth is the one weapon powerful people fear most. The real battle was approaching, bigger, louder, more dangerous than anything he imagined. But Ethan wasn't running. Not anymore. The next morning, the courthouse felt different. The air was heavy. The hallways were crowded. People whispered as if they already knew something big was going to happen. Ethan walked beside Porter, holding the printed email, the one linking the vice president to everything. The paper felt heavier than it should, almost like it carried the weight of a whole country. "Stay calm," Porter whispered. "They will try to shake you today." Ethan nodded, even though his heart felt like it was beating inside his throat. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was electric. Reporters filled every bench. Cameras pointed at the empty witness chair. Even the judge looked tense, as if he, too, expected a storm. The president was already there. Not surrounded by guards. Not sitting in the VIP section. Just another witness in the room. He gave Ethan a brief nod, calm but sharp, as if saying, "Be ready." The HOA members looked sick with fear. Their hands trembled. Their lawyer kept wiping sweat from his forehead. Porter leaned toward Ethan. "They know they're in trouble." Ethan didn't respond, he couldn't. His mind kept returning to one sentence from the email. "Use force if needed. The president must not know." If that line became public, everything could change. The judge finally entered. Court is now in session. Everyone stood. Everyone sat. The silence afterward felt powerful enough to break glass. Porter moved to the front. "Your Honor, we have obtained new evidence." The HOA lawyer jumped up. "We object. This evidence was collected without proper." The judge didn't even look at him. "Sit down. The court will examine the evidence." The room exploded with whispers again. Porter handed the printed email to the bailiff, who delivered it to the judge. The judge read the first lines, then stopped. His eyebrows lifted. His jaw tightened. When he continued reading, the courtroom held its breath. Finally, the judge looked up with a face that had turned completely serious. "Mr. President," he said slowly, "were you aware of any orders given by your vice president to the Willow Creek HOA?" The president stood. "No," he said. "I was not." The judge lifted the paper. "Then I suggest you read this." The president walked forward, took the email, and read it silently. When he finished, the room watched him with wide eyes. His expression didn't show shock, or fear, or confusion. It showed something far sharper: anger frozen in ice. He turned toward the courtroom, his voice steady but full of fire. "I did not approve this. And I will not protect anyone who uses my office for personal gain." The HOA lawyer sank into his chair. The HOA members looked like they might faint. And Ethan. For a moment, he forgot to breathe. Porter stepped closer to the witness stand. "Your Honor, this message proves the HOA acted under directions from the Vice President's office. They were not simply enforcing community rules. They were helping carry out a secret land takeover plan." The HOA lawyer tried to speak again, but the judge cut him off. "We will hear from the author of this email." A loud gasp filled the courtroom. The judge turned to the bailiff. "Bring in the witness." The doors opened. Everyone craned their necks. And then, a man walked in. Not the vice president, but someone Ethan recognized immediately. It was Mr. Dalton, the quiet HOA secretary. The man who always avoided eye contact. The man who always sat in the corner during meetings. The man no one suspected. Ethan felt the back of his neck prickle. Dalton looked terrified. His hands shook. His eyes darted around the room as if searching for someone who wasn't there. He sat in the witness chair. The judge leaned forward. "State your name." "M. Michael Dalton." "And your position?" "HOA Secretary and part-time Assistant Communications Officer for the Vice President." The whole room froze. Ethan's mind spun. Dalton worked for the Vice President? All this time? Inside the HOA? Porter stepped forward. "Mr. Dalton, did you send this email to the HOA President?" Dalton swallowed. "Yes." "Under whose orders?" Dalton's voice cracked. "Vice President Kincaid." The courtroom erupted like thunder. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. People gasped loudly. Even the judge had to bang his gavel repeatedly. "Order! Order!" But the chaos refused to settle. Even Ethan sat completely stunned. This wasn't some distant conspiracy. This wasn't some random mistake. This was deliberate. Dalton continued, voice trembling. He told us the president wouldn't approve the plan. So, he said we had to handle it quietly. He said the neighborhood needed to be cleared for the redevelopment project. He told us to make life hard for residents, so they would move out. And the burning of Ethan's crops? Porter asked. Dalton's eyes lowered. He ordered us to apply pressure. The HOA president took it too far. But we were told to make sure Ethan left first. His land was needed for phase 1 of the plan. Ethan felt a sudden wave of heat in his chest. They destroyed his crops because someone in power wanted his land? His hard work? His peace? His home? Anger pulsed through his body like electricity. The judge leaned back in disbelief. "This is bigger than an HOA dispute," he said. "This is government-level misconduct." The president spoke. "I will personally ensure the Justice Department investigates this." Dalton burst into tears. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I was following orders." Porter didn't look sympathetic. "You followed illegal orders," he said. "And you hurt many people." The judge sighed heavily. "This court will recess for 1 hour while we review the extent of this evidence. More witnesses may be required. Further charges may be added." The gavel hit the wood. Court dismissed. Outside the courtroom, chaos exploded again, reporters, cameras, people shouting. Porter guided Ethan through the storm. "You did well," Porter said. Ethan shook his head. "It's not over." "No," Porter agreed. "But today changed everything. The truth is out now." Ethan looked back at the courtroom doors. For months he had fought the HOA alone. Now the president was on his side. The vice president was exposed. And the whole country was watching. But Ethan felt something else too, something cold and heavy. Powerful people don't fall quietly. And the vice president. He wasn't the type of man to accept defeat. Ethan whispered to himself. This fight is far from finished. And somewhere inside the courthouse, a door creaked open. Someone unseen watched Ethan leave. Someone who wasn't ready to lose. The courthouse steps were crowded again, louder than ever. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. People pushed forward just to get a look at Ethan Walker, the man who had accidentally uncovered one of the biggest political scandals in years. But Ethan didn't stop to talk. He didn't have the energy. He didn't have the patience. And he didn't trust anyone outside the courtroom anymore. Porter guided him to the car. Get some rest, Ethan, Porter said. Tomorrow may be the hardest day yet. Ethan nodded. I know. But deep inside, sleep felt impossible. Because something told him. The vice president wouldn't stay quiet after being exposed. That night, the world exploded. Every news channel ran the same headline. Vice President Kincaid accused of illegal redevelopment scheme. Some anchors sounded shocked. Some sounded excited. And some sounded scared. Ethan watched the news quietly from his couch. But then the broadcast changed. A breaking news alert flashed. And the vice president appeared on screen. Kincaid stood behind a podium, calm, confident, untouched. His voice was smooth, practiced, dangerous. "I have been wrongly accused," he said. "These claims are lies brought by people who seek attention. I have never ordered harm against any citizen. I will defend my reputation." Then he said something that made Ethan's blood run cold. "And I will personally attend the next court session." Ethan froze. Porter had warned him. Men with power don't fall quietly. Kincaid wasn't running away. He was coming to fight. Morning arrived heavy and gray, like the sky understood what was coming. Ethan entered the courthouse. The room was silent at first, too silent. Until the doors opened. The vice president walked in. He carried himself like a man who controlled the world. Tall. Calm. Cold. A faint smile on his face. Not a friendly smile. A warning smile. Reporters stood. Cameras followed him. Even the judge looked uneasy. The president sat on one side of the courtroom. The vice president sat on the other. Two of the most powerful men in the country. In the same room. Facing each other. Because of Ethan Walker. Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine. The judge cleared his throat. "This court will now hear testimony regarding the involvement of Vice President Kincaid." Porter stood. "Your Honor, we have email evidence, witness testimony, and documents showing the Vice President directly ordered the HOA to pressure residents." Kincaid raised a hand. "Objection," he said. Everyone turned toward him. The judge blinked. "Mr. Vice President, you are not a lawyer." "No," Kincaid said calmly. "But I am a defendant. And I will speak." His voice was too calm. Too controlled. Too rehearsed. The judge sighed. "Proceed carefully." Kincaid stood and approached the witness stand. He didn't look at the judge. He didn't look at Porter. He looked straight at Ethan. "I want to hear from him first," Kincaid said. Ethan's heart jumped. The judge hesitated. "Mr. Walker, do you agree to testify now?" Ethan swallowed hard. Porter whispered, "You don't have to." But Ethan stood. "I'll do it." Ethan took the stand. His palms were sweaty. His throat felt dry. Kincaid approached slowly. "Mr. Walker," he began, voice soft, "you run a small farm. A simple life. Tell me, did you ever think burning crops could be an accident?" Ethan stared at him. "No. It was deliberate." Kincaid smiled faintly. "And you are so sure? You saw who did it?" "No," Ethan admitted. "But your email." Kincaid interrupted. "An email you cannot prove was written by me." Whispers spread through the courtroom. Porter stood. "We can prove." Kincaid raised a finger. "No. Not yet." Then he leaned closer to Ethan. "And you, Mr. Walker, you think I wanted your land?" Ethan kept his voice steady. "Yes." Kincaid tilted his head slightly. "Why? What makes your little farm so important?" Ethan took a deep breath. "You needed my land for your redevelopment project." Kincaid laughed softly, a cold, cruel sound. "Your land is worthless to me." He said it casually, like he was talking about trash. Ethan felt something burn inside his chest. Anger. But also clarity. "This isn't about land," Ethan said. "This is about control." Kincaid's smile faded. The room held its breath. Porter stepped forward. "Your Honor, we ask to present more evidence. The judge nodded. Proceed. Porter opened a file. Your Honor, not only did the Vice President direct the HOA through his assistant, he also created a private redevelopment fund. One that would help him gain personal profit once the neighborhood was cleared. Gasps filled the room. The President leaned forward, eyes sharp. Kincaid didn't blink. Lies, he said softly, but his jaw tightened. Porter handed the judge a bank document. The judge read it. Then he looked at Kincaid. Mr. Vice President, this account is under your name. Kincaid's calm expression cracked, just for a moment. A hint of panic showed. A flash of anger. A shadow of fear. But then he smiled again. That account was created by my staff. Without my knowledge. Ethan clenched his fists. He was lying. Everyone knew it. But power kept him brave. The President stood suddenly. Enough, he said. The entire courtroom silenced instantly. I have known you for many years, Daniel, the President continued. But if these documents are real, if you hurt citizens for your own gain, then I will not protect you. Kincaid's mask cracked again. You would turn against me, he asked. I will stand for the truth, the President replied. Silence. Heavy. Electric. Dangerous. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Kincaid, do you deny these accusations under oath? Kincaid's eyes moved around the room. Reporters watching. Lawyers watching. The President watching. Then his gaze landed on Ethan. There was hatred in his eyes now. Deep. Burning. Personal. He opened his mouth. But before he could speak, a voice shouted from the back of the courtroom. He's lying. Everyone turned. Dalton, the HOA secretary, stood up again. I have more evidence, he yelled. I didn't show everything before because I was scared. The bailiff rushed toward him, but Dalton pulled out a small USB drive. This drive contains audio recordings. Dalton cried. Meetings with the Vice President. Instructions. Threats. Everything. Chaos exploded. Reporters screamed. Cameras flashed. The judge banged his gavel. The President stood. Kincaid's face drained of color. Porter grabbed the USB. Your Honor, Porter said breathlessly, this must be added to the case file immediately. The judge agreed. And for the first time, Kincaid looked defeated. The judge announced. The court will recess so we can listen to the audio. After review, we will deliver a final decision. People stood. People talked. People shouted. But Ethan just sat there. Breathing. Thinking. Feeling the weight slowly lift from his chest. For the first time in months, the truth was stronger than the lies. Porter placed a hand on his shoulder. You did it, Ethan. Ethan shook his head. No, he said quietly. We did it. He looked toward the back of the courtroom, where Dalton stood trembling. And then toward the President, who nodded at him like an equal. And finally at Kincaid, who sat frozen, staring at Ethan with pure hatred. This wasn't just a fight over burned crops anymore. It was the fall of a powerful man. Triggered by an ordinary farmer who refused to stay quiet. Hours later, court resumed. The judge's face was stern. The audio confirms all accusations. The Vice President abused his power, manipulated the HOA, and targeted residents. He turned to Ethan. Mr. Walker, justice has been served today. Your courage has protected others. Then he looked at Kincaid. Mr. Vice President, you are hereby stripped of your office and placed under federal custody. Cameras flashed. Reporters screamed. Guards moved forward. Kincaid didn't fight. He just stared at Ethan. You ruined me, he whispered. Ethan met his eyes. No, Ethan said softly. You ruined yourself. When Ethan stepped outside the courthouse, the sun was shining. It felt warm. It felt real. It felt like freedom. Reporters asked questions. People cheered. Some cried. But Ethan just smiled and whispered to himself. It's finally over. The world now knew the truth. The HOA's power was gone. The vice president was finished. And Ethan Walker was finally going home.